Hey kids, Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. June has shot by once again, which means I've had another 4 MCNs pass through my letterbox and I've read them from cover to cover. And in the next couple of minutes I'm going to give you my review of the paper for the last month, let you know the top stories that have been appearing in MCN in case you don't get the paper yourself. Okay, so to the first paper then, which is this one. And the first story that I've picked out, here it is. This is the new Ultimate Multi-Tool is the headline that MCN have given it. This is the new Ducati Multistrada Enduro, and this is their attempt at rivaling the BMW GS Rally, I think. They've basically made the bike a bit more aggressive, a bit more off-road focused. It's got the spokes, it's got the knobbly tyres, it's got the smaller screen, etc. And lots of styling changes. Looks fantastic. Terminioni pipes as well, which look great. But the reason why I pointed it out really is to just number one, to say that it exists, but really just to say that, you know, it's 19 grand. It's an expensive bike, isn't it? And in reality, is anyone really going to take a 19 grand bike off-road? I don't know, I'm not sure I want to, unless you've got excessive amounts of money. I think if you're going to spend that amount of money on a bike, it looks great, but 19 grand, you're probably not going to be chucking it down a green lane, I would suggest. Anyway, so there's that one. So I do wonder how many of those sort of bikes they would sell that actually do get used off-road, probably not many. While we're on the off-road theme, the next story I picked out here, this is one of these MCN multi-tests, and they've pitched here the V-Strom 1000 against the baby Multistrada, the 950, the baby KTM Adventure, the 1090, and the Africa Twin. All bikes that I love, actually. I've not ridden actually yet the V-Strom 1000, I've ridden the 650. I'm going to be riding the V-Strom 1000 quite soon, and you'll be able to see my review of that in August. So looking forward to riding that myself. I have ridden the Africa Twin though, and the KTM 1090 Adventure. Great bikes, all of them. I haven't ridden the baby Multistrada yet, but would love to if only I could get a Ducati dealer to talk to me and lend me one. Well, certainly my local one anyway. But the interesting thing here is the result of the test is that the Ducati Multistrada has come out top, which maybe, you know, I might have guessed, but they put the Africa Twin bottom, which is quite interesting because that's the most expensive of the bikes. And things like the V-Strom 1000 have beaten the Africa Twin. It's just interesting how these things move, because when the Africa Twin came out, most people, MCN included, absolutely said it was kind of the best thing since sliced bread in terms of lightweight, cheaper adventure bikes were concerned. But in fact, it's 12 grand against things like the V-Strom, which is 9.5 grand, or even the Ducati Multistrada, which is 11,335. So it's the most expensive here. But now they're marking it as fourth in that group test, which is just kind of interesting. I don't know, when these bikes come out, they get all the fanfare, don't they? And everybody thinks they're the best thing since sliced bread, and then a year down the line and it's coming last in a review of some of its rivals. Just thought that was quite interesting. Okay, next story I've picked out here. It's not really a story, it's a pull-out. Now, I've mentioned this before. Now, what MCN here have done, I'm not by any means having a bash at MCN. I love reading the paper. It's a great paper. If you don't buy it, subscribe. It's good. But they've got a 24-page pull-out here. They often have pull-outs on various subjects, and this one is all about PCP deals. So they've listed here 79 different bikes that you can buy on personal contract purchase. Now, again, I've mentioned this many times. I don't get personal contract purchase. It just, to me, it just smacks of renting a bike rather than owning it yourself. I know it works for some people, but to me it's kind of a way of selling new bikes to people that can't really afford them. So there we go. But the point I'm making here really is that once again MCN is pushing PCP. Seems to do it all the time. What's in it for them? I understand what's in it for the manufacturers. It hooks you into a particular manufacturer's bike and brand, and you're likely to come back to them, and when it's time to change bike, go for the same manufacturer again. But what is it? What's in it for the magazines? I don't know. I wonder if there's some sort of a pushback going on. So that was that. Just PCP yet again rears its ugly head. Ugly head in my mind. And then the last story in this particular paper, yet again, PCP. Again, it's another feature about PCP. This time it's saying, you know, what sports bikes can you buy? Don't worry about it. Going fast for less. You can, you know, a sports bike can be affordable. And it talks about buying things like an R1 for £165 a month, which isn't really true, because you're not buying it for £165 a month. You're renting it, and you're having to put down a £3,369 deposit, and there's an 8.5 grand final payment. So it's not quite true to say £165 a month and that bike can be yours, is it? Which is kind of the implication of these things. So I don't know. PCP once again gets heavily pushed, and I just think it's a bit wrong. That's just my view. Okay, next paper. Only got 2 stories to pull out here. First one is this. It's another MCN test, and this is a classic test. So they're comparing here the Yamaha XSR 900 Abarth against the R9T Racer, the Street Cup, and the Ducati Scrambler Cafe Racer. I pulled this up because this actually, as you can see from my screen, I have actually in the can got a Street Cup versus R9T Racer video myself. I managed to get both these bikes at the same time, so I was able to do a direct comparison. I won't tell you what my conclusions were about those two, but what I can tell you in the MCN test, and if you want to see my review, by the way, August the 25th that goes up. I do have an upload schedule, believe it or not, and it runs until that late. So August, that one you'll see on my channel. Anyway, this is the, as I say, the MCN review, and they came out with this ordering. They in fact put the Street Cup last, and said that it was kind of, you know, basically a bit of a disappointing bike in terms of its go, and the Ducati Scrambler first, the Cafe Racer version first, which is quite interesting. There's no doubt the Ducati Scrambler goes well. I just didn't like it much when I rode the bike. But there we go, that's quite interesting. And again, they've kind of slagged off the Street Cup, which they never did when they originally reviewed the bike. So where is it? Here we are. Here we are, Trance Street Cup, a classic case of style over substance. They're saying it looks good, but it doesn't go well. Yeah, if you'd read the original reviews on the Street Cup when it was launched, you'd think it was the best thing since sliced bread. So it's odd how opinions change over time with these bikes. So that was my point there, same point as I made before really. And then what have I selected this story for? Oh yeah, this is interesting. This is one of the letters that came in. Somebody here that's got a Trance Speed Triple, and they're saying they don't ride it very much. They only do about 1,500 miles a year. Does it really need a full surface after that? And effectively the answer that the MCN guys have given is the same as my kind of view on this, is if you're only doing light mileage, then there's no reason why you can't just give it an oil and filter change. Of course, you've got to comply with the manufacturer's schedules. If it's under warranty, you might want to get it done by a dealer to maintain that warranty. But you know, there's no reason, if it's a low mileage bike, you've had it for a while, and you just want to do an oil and filter change, you can do that yourself and save yourself a few bob. Certainly when my Street Triple's up for its service, just like I did on my Honda CRF, I'll be servicing it myself and save myself, you know, 100 quid or whatever. So that was that paper. Next one, 4 stories in here. First one is this, Trance Power Moto 2. And this is the story that Trance have won the contract to supply engines for the Moto 2 championship that supports MotoGP, which is great news. It's effectively, it's the engine out of the Street Triple, the 765, and it's been slightly tweaked. So it's got a modified cylinder head, it's got titanium valves, taller first gear, slipper clutch. It's got a Magneti Marelli race ECU and some various other little changes, but it's basically the same engine as you can get in the Street Triple. So fantastic news, great kudos for Trance there. Presumably they make a few bob supplying the engines as well. And it also makes you think, well, if they're doing that for Moto 2, does that mean there's maybe a new Daytona around the corner? Something that I would love to see. And you know, it seems like that an engine like that would be perfect in a new Daytona 765, wouldn't it? Anyway, there we go. So that's great news for Trance, I think. Next story in here, return of an icon. This is a review of the R9T Urban GS. Again, this is another bike that I've recently ridden. And if you want to see my review, this is scheduled to go up on July the 17th, which seems a long way off as well, but there we go. I've got lots coming up soon on the channel. This bike looks a bit like, it's sort of Scrambler-esque, and it's designed to sort of mimic or commemorate the original GS that came out, I think, in the 80s. 88, was it? Something like that? Oh no, 1980, sorry, was the R80 GS. And this is kind of a celebration of that bike. And it's, again, it's a sort of a Scrambler-esque bike. Of course, there is an R9T Scrambler, which I rode and I absolutely hated because it had these knobbly tyres on that ruined the ride for me. I love the look of the bike, but the ride was just awful. Well, I've ridden this one, and I won't tell you the outcome other than to say you'll want to see that review. Interesting bike. Okay, I'll leave it there on that one. Next story here. Now this is interesting. This is a review again of adventure bikes. This time it's the big boys. So they've pitted the GS, the TE, which is the one that most people will buy, against the Multistrada 1200 and the KTM 1290 Super Adventure S, which is my favourite adventure bike at the moment in terms of riding. And surprisingly, the result that they came out with was that the GS is actually the one to buy now, which I'm surprised. This is the ordering they came out with. GS first, then the Super Adventure, and then the Multistrada. Very interesting. Personally, I'd have put it the other way around with probably the Super Adventure first, and then the GS. But having said that, I love my GS, and I do think the GS still looks great, particularly with the new graphics and the new tweaks that they've given to the bike, the changes to the gearbox, the smoothness to the engine, etc. Maybe it's still number one. It's certainly pretty competitive up there in that particular space, and some great bikes to choose from if you're in the adventure bike market. Okay, last but not least from this one. one of these comparisons of the street triple versus the speed triple, and this is a comparison that you see quite often from time to time. I've even done a video myself of this comparison a while back. MCN, I'm glad to say, have come to the same conclusion as I came to when I did the review, and that is that the street triple beats the speed triple. And their reasoning again is the same as mine, basically that the street is just lighter, more agile, more fun. I do think the speed triple looks a bit more butch. I like the underslung exhausts, I like the single-sided swing arm, but when I rode one about a year ago, it was just still felt quite heavy to me, and when you jump on the street it's just like a completely different machine, which of course it is, but it's just a nicer machine, I think, to ride. And when you consider the Speed Triple R is £12,100 and the Street Triple RS, the top spec one with the Olins and the fancy dash and the Brembo brakes, is £9,900, you're getting quite a lot for your money there, and it's a much more fun bike to ride, I think. Just my opinion, but interesting that MCN came up with the same verdict. So that was the 4 stories from that paper. And then we're nearly there. This is this week's paper. Got a few stories here that leapt out at me. First off, this one. The new Ducati V4 has been spied in the wild. I think I've mentioned this before, that Ducati are thinking of, or rather this is the last year of Panigale production as we know it, because they're swapping the engines out into a V4, which is upset some Ducati or Ducatista types, because the V-twin, of course, is the bike that Ducati is so well known for. But they're going to be producing a V4, and these are the first times we've seen pictures of what looks to be the new bike in the wild. And it's hard to see from these test mules because they always paint them in dull colours, so you can't really tell what's going on. But it does look very Panigale-esque, which is great news, because I think the Panigale is just a beautiful looking bike. It just looks a bit fatter, of course, because it's got to accommodate the new wider V4 engine. But can't wait to see what that looks like and how it goes when it comes out. It's probably a year or two away still, but I think it's going to be an absolutely amazing bike. So really looking forward to that. And also wonder what they're going to call it. It'll be interesting. They reckon there's going to be 2 versions there, a 1000cc version and a 1200cc. And they're saying that it's going to be a premium bike, but not an exotic, whatever that means. But so maybe it means it'll be competitively priced. We'll see. But really looking forward to seeing that. Next story. Oh yeah, at last, the Street Triple, talking about that before. This is the Street Triple S, which is the basic model of the bike Street Triple range that hadn't burst cover much until now. Everybody had been looking at the RS, including myself, but this is the basic bike, and it's the first time that MCN have properly ridden it, the entry-level machine. Now, when you consider it costs £8,000, so, you know, pretty good value for a bike of this type, and they give it a glowing review. They're basically saying, don't think of it as a basic bike, just think of it as excellent value for money and a fun ride. So you know, if you can't quite stretch to the RS, then the Street Triple S, which I think actually looks better because it's got nice gloss paint schemes and so on, is well worth considering. They're saying the brakes and the suspension, although they're not as top spec as the RS, they're still absolutely fine. And of course you don't get that fancy new TFT dash, but you know, I could live without that, I think. So well worth considering. If you're thinking about street triples, then go and check out the well, I'll say entry level rather than basic option, the S. Okay, so that's that. Penultimately then, for this one, unusual little review. This is a review of Maxi Scoots, something that just don't seem to take off in this country. I assume always because of the weather we get in Blight. It's just not very conducive to riding around town on scooters. But I also think it's probably a snobbery and image thing, in that bikers, proper bikers, aren't to be seen on scooters. I imagine that's a lot of what it's about. But I don't know, I think they look quite mean these days. I've never ever ridden a scooter, but would love to. And I'm pleased to say I have got in the diary a ride on this one, which is the Yamaha T-Max DX, which looks to be an amazing looking beast, and they give it a pretty glowing review in here, it has to be said. So I'm going to be riding that and doing a review. I'll post that one up, believe it or not, October the 6th, that's in the schedule for. Just gives you an idea of the amount of stuff that I've got coming between now and then. So really looking forward to riding a scooter for the first time and seeing if I can work out, you know, why they don't catch on in this country a bit more. And then finally for this month's review, just pull this out because MCN, I'm glad to say, have been doing a lot more routes and focusing on riding rather than just models. And I'm a big fan of touring in the country. And this particular route that I've highlighted here is called the Wild Atlantic Way. This is the west coast of Ireland that one of their team has been riding, or they've been doing a very small part of it. And it's very much on my radar. I don't know much about it. I've bought myself some Ireland maps. And I've sort of roughly planned it out, but it's 1,600 miles in total, so I'm not going to be able to do the whole thing in one go, I don't think, because getting there and back and riding the 1,600 miles is going to take, you know, probably well, more than a week, more time than I've got at hand. But certainly I'm going to do some sections of it if I can, hopefully maybe even this year. So if you know anything about the Wild Atlantic Way, if you've ridden it, got any hints or tips for me, let me know, and I'll make sure I factor that into my route, and of course you'll be seeing those videos in due course. Alright, that's it then. So that was it for my MCN review this month. Once again, rocketed through, loads of stuff in here. If you want the full story, of course you can buy back issues, or I do recommend, as I say, take yourself out a subscription. It's always a good read. I read it from cover to cover. It's how I keep up to date with the motorbike market. A great read. Alright, hope that's been of interest. Look forward to speaking to you next time. Until then, this has been the Missing and Fly. Cheerio.